The abundance saga continues in my first full year of Sisters Enchanted business. The first full year, 2017 was our first full year in business. We cracked the coveted $100,000 in revenue mark. And we're going to dive into 2017 in today's episode. We know that you were born magical. We know that you are intuitive, and we know that you are brimming with everyday enchantment. Here at the Sisters Enchanted, we believe in intention, we believe in intuition, and we believe in everyday magic. Welcome in to the Expedition to Soul podcast. Welcome into Expedition to Soul. I'm Sara, founder of the Sisters Enchanted. If you missed the first part of this series, this is a 7-part series to celebrate 7 years of the Sisters Enchanted and 7 years of abundance lessons. You'll want to go back to episode 1. And my takeaways from episode 1 in 2016 was this idea of what you've got to have a desire that is bigger than the feeling of safety and complacency, right? So like, what is your desire that's big, so big that safety and fear is just like off the table for you? And when I talk about abundance, I'm talking a lot about money here. But because I really do think that, I mean, the more money we have, the more good we can do in the world. The more that women have money in particular, the more spiritually minded, kind women have money, the more we can change the world, the more we can support other small businesses who are also changing the world, right? The more we can buy back our time. So, and I know that money is such a stressor for people. Like you lose sleep over it. You make decisions that are not in alignment with your values because of it. Um, and so while there's all these sayings that like money, you don't need money or happiness or whatever, all these things. And you know what? I think that those sayings are true, but also the fact of the matter is having money does make life easier. It just does. Now, if you know how to handle your money, if you don't know how to handle your money, it'll make your life harder. And I've been there too. So listen back to episode 1, where I did have money for the first time in my life and ended up in lots of credit card debt. So why people who, win the lotto often end up bankrupt because they don't know how to handle money. So there's that story as well. But once you know how to handle it, right? But whether you want maybe you want an abundance of more like intimate time, or maybe you want an abundance of healthier relationships. These abundance principles can be applied to anything in your life. So the first one is, what is the thing that you desire so much that the safety of complacency is no longer on the table? So maybe you desire that deeper connection in your marriage or relationship, right? But you're afraid to speak up about it because you don't want your partner to feel put off or leave you or like not like you anymore because you spoke up for the first time ever. That's safety and complacency because you know what to expect. So what do you desire, that deeper level of intimacy, more than that complacency? That's the question. You got to find that thing that you desire greater than the safety of complacency. Okay, 2017. This is the Sisters Enchanted would turn 1 this year. So we had 1 year, and 2017 was our first full year in business. We started business in May. And so this was the first full year in business. I ran my other business that I had with TSE through April of 2017. I had my second child on May 9th. Listen, y'all, I was answering customer service emails from the hospital, like literally within hours of having a C-section. I was answering customer service emails from the hospital and promoting a class a week later. Not an ideal situation. 10 out of 10 do not recommend. But, if you heard my first part of this story, I don't come from money. I didn't have money in the bank. My husband didn't make a ton of money. And our health insurance situation was lackluster, and it was what it was, right? But I found that my desire to keep moving was very, very strong. And at this point in time, Anna, my sister, my co-founder, she was helping in the business as much as she could. She worked a full-time job also, and Anna was helping with social media. At this point in time, she had done a 78 days of tarot series where she did a video for 78 days, one video each day of all the tarot cards, and she was helping the best that she could. Anna, at this point, her main function was like showing up, being support. But in terms of like all of the business stuff and making the money, I was the one doing that. So I, had to keep moving forward. So in 2017, it became really clear to me as part of my abundance story that I like to work. Like, I actually find a great deal of joy in working. It also became very clear that I could do this thing. I could like do the Sisters Enchanted. It could change lives. We could employ people, make a big impact in the world, if I had support at home. So up till this point, I was home with my daughter during the day and would work when my husband came home. And if I felt like if I had more house or child help, and if I could afford the help, I could really grow this. I was exhausted, literally crying on the kitchen floor several times per week, exhausted. Um, and so that's not an abundance of support, right? So in this, when we talk about abundance, I had to learn a lot of abundance lessons around money, but also abundance lessons around energy and asking for support and getting an abundance of support and an abundance of my time back. I had to work on all of those things. I distinctly remember a moment in time where I was literally crying on the kitchen floor, breastfeeding my son. I had my laptop next to me trying to do customer service. And my daughter, who has some like regulation, social emotional stuff that she's been working on, her whole life, was hitting me on the head and cackling. And I was just sitting there crying, like, what on earth is happening here? It was a trying time. My husband was self-employed, but he was a home remodeling contractor. Uh, Not a guy for business though. He would contract himself to other contractors. So he did have like a steady income, but it wasn't enough to pay our bills by any stretch of the imagination. And because he contracted himself to other contractors, he wasn't paid that well either. But I knew that we really had to make space for the life we desired. I desired to get the Sisters Enchanted off the ground. I desired that in a big way. I desired to be with my family. And as I saw that my daughter, having worked with kids with differences, I knew at a very young age she was going to need different supports. And having worked in public schools, I also felt like that wasn't going to be the route I wanted to take. And I really had this big desire, right? And I needed to make space for it. So in abundance, I needed to work on my abundance mindset around money, support, time, space, all of these things. So this year, that year 2017, we live in a house that's pretty small. We still live in this small house. We still had all of these payments, right? But the question I had to ask myself was, what was the most efficient and effective use of my time and of my husband's time when he was home with me? How could we prioritize that? Because I couldn't afford a babysitter. So I had to really look at time as my first abundance resource, actually, not money. So a lot of people start with money when it comes to abundance and trying to manifest money to solve their problems. It is my experience, and from working with a lot of neurodiverse people over the years, like many of the hundreds of them, uh, and I know with 100% certainty, time comes before money. That chicken and egg situation, it's not a question here. Money does not come first. Time comes first. If you are not abundant in time, you will not be abundant in money. And if you are abundant in money, you will resent it because you have no time. So, time comes first. And I really had to look at, how do I create an abundance of time or like abundance of focus in the time that I had? How do I become hyper focused, hyper efficient, hyper effective? That was what I had to focus on in 2017, not actually the money. So that year, in August of 2017, my son, what would that make him? Like 5 months old, 6 months old? What's the math on that? He was born in May, eight. So he's 3 months old. Is that right? He was 3 months old. I don't know. He was a baby. That's all I know. I was promoting a class, and it was $67. And I think there was a version that was like $130 or something, maybe. I'm not sure. Was not a high price thing though. And we were in Cape Cod with my husband's mom. She had a timeshare there, and we were there visiting her. And I remember I was like saying, this is the last day to sign up, all of these things. People were signing up. And that program sold $10,000. And that higher price part had a 2 or 3 month payment plan. So we didn't have $10,000 right then, like it would come over a few months. Um, but it sold that much. And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, again, time comes first. I had become hyper efficient with my time, and what I did with my time, right? And I knew that if I had more time, I could really do this thing. So that October or September, my husband, that was the last day my husband worked, September 2017. And it was kind of a joke. He said, we went on a trip with my grandparents, and notice all our trips involved family because we couldn't afford to go on any trips. So we were with family and we were visiting them. And my husband was like, "I'm sailing into retirement," he would say. My husband's a big jokester. He says all kinds of funny things. He was like, "I'm sailing into retirement." And I kept thinking like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," you know. And even my grandmother was like, "Uh-huh, what are you going to do with yourself?" And we came home though from that trip, and sure as shit, my husband did not go back to work. And and part of me was like terrified. My husband's also not the kind like a stay-at-home dad type. So that was really interesting. He came from a very traditional parenting roles where his dad worked like 6 days a week in a union and really provided for the family, and his mom was home during the day. So it was terribly challenging for my husband to be home. It took years to get him out of that mindset, like literal years to get him out of the mindset of what it looks like to be a dad and a mom in a heteronormative parenting relationship. Like years, I'm not exaggerating. So my mindset things and my abundance things in 2017 were really about time. How do I buy back my time? And that was getting my husband to not work. So while that was a big financial leap and we couldn't really afford it, like honestly, we still struggled just in personal finances. The business was doing okay, but personal finances, it was hard for a while because we weren't making enough money really to, you hear, oh, you made $10,000. Well, half of that right off the top goes to expenses within the business. So we did not have, like, it wasn't enough to just be paying our bills as a family of four in Connecticut. So it was really challenging, but the mindset shift I had to make there was looking at the return on investment of my time. What could I do with my time if I could buy it back? And getting my husband out of work was buying back my time. So that's that abundance mindset piece there. The other thing that I really had to look for in 2017 was the mindset bit of struggling, feeling like I had to be the one doing it all. I had to take care of the kids. I had to run the business, like take care of the house, feed the family. And that comes from that mindset, that abundance piece too, is what does it feel like to be abundant in support? So 2016 for me was really about, what's my desire, my abundant desire that's greater than the feeling of safety and complacency. 2017 was understanding return on my time and how is my time actually my most valuable resource and not money? Because if I have the time I need to do the thing, the money will come. And if I don't have the time and I'm busting my butt to make money, I will just resent it and be miserable and hate that I did it. So, really looking at time as my most important resource and adjusting my abundance mindset around time. And with that, what it felt like to get support, how to ask for support, what support I needed. I think one of the things that I certainly saw in my life was a story of martyrdom in women. My grandmother was always like the martyr. My mom was a single mom. And this idea of asking for and getting help, especially from a male partner, was like not something I had ever seen in my life. Like never had I seen that. And so understanding abundance of support in my relationship and as a parent, that was another mindset shift I had to make, and a real like abundance growth thing for me. And I didn't know I needed it until it was staring me in the face. But that was my lesson of 2017. So my tip for you, or the question I'm going to leave you with today, is because we are doing this journaling event and also gearing up for our Conjuring Abundance delivery, which is part of our Holistic Witchery program. So you can certainly learn about that at holisticwitchery.com. But I want to leave you with some food for thought for you. And the thing I want you to do today is look for proof of success. So look for the proof that you can do it. I had lots of evidence that I could do it because I'd been doing it, doing the thing, right? Whatever the thing is for you. Look for proof of success, evidence that you can do the hard things, and then start to understand the return on investment in your time, your energy, and your money. So if you spend an hour of time on something, what is the return on investment in that hour for you? Is it that you gain rest, you gain peace, you gain clarity, you gain support, you gain money? Work is like that's money is certainly a return on investment. So what is the ROI, the return on investment in the time that you spend on things, your energy levels, like how much energy you put into things, and your money. Because your money that you put into something, right, ideally will lead to some sort of heightened return in your life. If you spend money on something, you want a heightened return, which is why I love online programs because I put money in and I walk away with just one really good idea or one thought that changes everything for me. And I'll spend money on those all day long before I buy like new clothes or a new car or new furniture, whatever. I will spend money on thoughts all day long because the return on investment is nearly instant every single time. Your time. How are you spending your time? And how can you buy back more of that so that you can do the thing you want to do? Okay, that is part 2 of this abundance series. Oh my gosh, this is like wordy. I hope it's helping somebody. I'm just riffing. I've got notes, but I'm really riffing on most of this as the story comes up and walking down this memory lane. I got to tell you, it's a thing. It's a whew. Okay, so part 3 will come out next, and we will dive into 2018. But until next time, I hope that you have an enchanted rest of your day ahead. If you liked this episode of the Expedition to Soul podcast, please rate, review, subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it will really help us spread everyday magic, intention, and intuition to the masses and helps us so much as a small business. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. There are new episodes every Tuesday and astro forecasts for the week ahead every Friday. If there's any topics you'd want to hear, anything you want us to dive deeper into, shoot us an email at magic@thesistersenchanted.com. And as always, thank you so much for listening and being part of the community here at the Sisters Enchanted. And we'll see you in the next episode.